Thank you. Good afternoon. And so I'm with Mining Watch Canada. We're a small nonprofit based in Ottawa. We work across Canada and around the world to try and make the mining industry responsible for what it does. Here in BC, I'm also the co-chair of the BC Mining Law Reform Network. I might come back to this at the end of this presentation just to tell you a little bit about that. But I'm here to talk about gold, because that's what the film's about. Gold is a marvelous thing. It's a marvelous metal. It's amazing. It's the alchemist's ideal. It's incorruptible. It's permanent. It's almost infinitely malleable. It doesn't corrode. It doesn't decay. It's a symbol of wealth and power and beauty, and also of corruption and greed. And the film explores all of those angles. It looks at the market for gold, why people want gold, what they do to get gold, but also, as the title implies, the shadow of it, what's happening underneath, what behind the glitter of gold, what is the dark side? And that's what I deal with a lot, because we're looking at the extraction of gold having an environmental impact, having an impact on people's human rights. Gold is the Canadian mining industry's #1 product. It's worth more than all of the iron ore, all of the copper, all of the potash, all of the uranium that Canada produces. And the vast majority of the actual mining operations in Canada, and exploration as well, are around gold, because it makes money. Very little of it's actually used for anything constructive, shall we say. In your electronics, it's used because it doesn't corrode, because the contacts will be reliable. Very small amounts. So maybe 8% of gold around the world is used in industry, in electronics. But even because it's such a wonderfully ductile metal, even in things like invisible films for the windshields of jetliners to de-ice the windscreen, because it can conduct heat, but it can be made so thin that it's basically invisible. Marvelous stuff. Marvelous stuff. But I love it because it's as a material, as a thing, it is gorgeous. But that, as I say, that has an effect, and it's also, this room is almost as big as the cube of all of the gold ever produced in the world. It'd be about a cube about a little over 20 meters aside, but 200,000 tons of gold, because it's very dense, packs into a very small place. Most of that is still in circulation because it's recycled very effectively, but also because most of it is dug up only to be buried again in the vaults, and saved because of its value, not because of anything that it actually does or is good for. And even Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, the investor's investor, has said it's basically useless. So, again, why is this such a huge industry? Why is it such a focus for the Toronto Stock Exchange, for the Canadian industry, and around the world? And the film will take you to different locations around the world to see how gold is extracted and what it means to the people who are doing the extracting, who are doing the mining, and the people who live around those operations. And we have, we work in a lot of those places, and we try to address those issues to say we have to reconfigure this industry. We have to change the rules. We have to support the communities and the people that are affected by the mining activities, that are affected by the environmental devastation, the contamination from cyanide or from the arsenic and heavy metals that come with the gold itself, or in the case of small-scale mining, the mercury that's used to extract the gold. But we have to change the system that allows this to happen, that makes this so valuable, and that devalues all of those costs that, as the economists say, are externalized. So the human costs, the environmental costs, the watersheds that are destroyed and poisoned forever, those things don't have an economic value. They don't count in GDP except as a positive, because cleanup takes work. And so that's a positive element for GDP, but it doesn't, it's not counted in the price of the product, it's profit. All of those things. And so we have to work at changing the rules, we have to work at changing the values, and we have to work at changing the way we account for all of this that makes it so dominant and so overwhelming. And that's, that's where we come back to, I'm going to come back to BC, I'm going to come back to, the way that the industry treats indigenous peoples, where you can stake a claim for a mining property online without talking to anybody. You get your little permit, you go online, you pay your fee, it's what, $25 or something, you go online and you click and you collect areas of land. The people who live there, whether they're cottagers or ranchers or First Nations, don't even know that's happening until you show up with your equipment. And, there's actually a court case coming up in April with the Kekatla, and that's that First Nations are taking the province to court because of this. They're saying you're allowing people to stake a claim in our territory, not just without our consent, but without our knowledge. We're not even notified. And the province, to its credit, the provincial government has acknowledged this is a problem. They've committed to reforming the Mineral Tenure Act. What the BC Mining Law Reform Network is doing is campaigning to make sure that happens. We're trying to put pressure on the province to fulfill that promise and make it fulfill it in a way that actually makes a difference. We're doing the same thing on things like mine waste. So trying to make sure, and you'll see the Mount Poly disaster in the film. Trying to make sure that can't happen again, that we don't keep allowing these things to be built in a way that's not safe. If mining is going to continue, it has to be done in a way that is safe, that is not, contaminating in the present and in the future and creating these massive, massive liabilities, these huge toxic waste dumps that are sitting up in the watersheds, high in the mountains above the Fraser, above the Stikine, above the Nass rivers, waiting to collapse and come downstream. So we're pushing on all of these things, and so that's the what you can do. I mean, you can look at what gold are you wearing, where did it come from. This is there's a few grams of gold that we can account for that way, but it's the tons and tons of gold that are being mined and then buried again in the ground that we have to address. So I'll stop there, and thank you all for coming, and enjoy the film. I've seen it a number of times, and it's great. So,
incredible. Round of applause for Jamie.